Yeah, Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava. Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava. Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha. Girivardhari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nashta Prayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 16, text 5 and 6. So just pull this up on the screen. Viprushmata Vishadormi Marutena Bhimarshita Mriyante Tiragaisya Pranina Stirajangamaha. Viprut Mata, containing droplets of water. Vishada, poisonous. Urmi, having touched the waves. Marutena, by the wind. Abhimarshitaha, contacted. Mriyante, would die. Tiragaha, present upon the shore. Yasya, of which. Praninaha, all living entities. Stira jangamaha, both non-moving and moving. Translation. The wind blowing over that deadly lake carried droplets of water to the shore. Simply by coming in contact with that poisonous breeze, all vegetation and creatures on the shore died. Purport. The word stira, unmoving creatures, refers to various types of vegetation, including trees. And jangama refers to moving creatures such as animals, reptiles, birds, and insects. Srila Sridhar Swami has quoted a further description of this lake from Sri Harivangsha. Dhergam yojana vistaram dustaram trijasharapi gambhiram akshobhya jalam nishkampam ivasagaram dukhopasarpam tereshu sasarper vipuler bilai visharani bhavasyagnaya dhumena pariveshtitam trineshapi patasvapsu tvalantam iva tejasa samantad yojanam sagram tireshapi durasadam. The lake was quite wide, 8 miles across at some points, and even the demigods could not cross over it. The water in the lake was very deep, and like the immovable depths of the ocean could not be agitated. Approaching the lake was difficult, for its shores were covered with holes in which serpents lived. And all around the lake was a fog generated by the fire of the serpent's poison, and this powerful fire would at once burn up every blade of grass that happened to fall into the water. For a distance of 8 miles from the lake, the atmosphere was most unpleasant. Srila Sanatana Goswami states that by the mystical science of Jalastambha, making solid items out of water, Kaliya had built his own city within the lake. So we hear about this Jalastambha. It's a mystical science by which you can make solid things out of liquid, out of water. So this way Kaliya was living very comfortably there in that lake. But everyone around him wasn't that comfortable. So it said that even that lake was so poisonous that even a blade of grass that happened to fall upon the water would immediately burn. That would be like catch fire or just dissolve like in acid, or however we can use our imagination a little bit what that would look like. But it says for a distance of 8 miles from the lake, the atmosphere was most unpleasant. And it said that even the demigods could not cross over it. It was so poisonous, so toxic. So we'll read the next verse too. So now Krishna is going to take some action. So this is a beautiful meditation given in this verse. Tam chandavega vishaviryam avekshatena dushtam nadim cha kalasam yamanavatar Krishna kadambam adhiruya tatoti tungam aspotya gadarasano nyapatad vishode. Tam Kaliya Chandravegam, of fearsome power, Visha, the poison, Viryam, whose strength, Aveksha, seeing, Tena, by him, Dushtam, contaminated, Nadim, the river, Cha, and Kala, the envious demons, Samyamana, for subduing, Avataraha, whose descent from the spiritual world, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Kadambam, a Kadamba tree, Adiruya, climbing upon, Tataha, from it, Atitungam, very high, Aspotya, slapping his arms, Gada Rashanaha, tying his belt firmly, Nyapatat, he jumped, Visha Uday, into the poisoned water. Sometimes we just skip over the Sanskrit, go straight to the translation. But actually, when we take a moment to really look at the Sanskrit words and let those words touch us and let this picture touch us, we can go so much deeper than if we just like read the English. And that's why Srila Prabhupada instituted that Bhagavatam class means you chant the Sanskrit, you go over the word by word, and then you also read the translation. Of course, sometimes we have many verses, but when the Bhagavatam gives us these kind of meditations, the kind of images of, especially of Krishna, it's nice to kind of zoom in a little bit more and look at the words. So translation, Lord Krishna saw how the Kaliya serpent had polluted the Yamuna river with this terribly powerful poison. Since Krishna had descended from the spiritual world specifically to subdue envious demons, the Lord immediately climbed to the top of a very high Kadamba tree and prepared himself for battle. How did he prepare himself? He tightened his belt, slapped his arms, and jumped into the poisonous water. Purport. According to the Acharyas, Lord Krishna also tied back the locks of his hair as he prepared to do battle with Kaliya. Fortunately, I didn't have so much time to prepare. I would love to read in the comments of the Acharya what's the meaning of Krishna slapping his hands, because I'm sure there's some comments there. So if anybody would know, please, we would be interested to hear some of the sweet details of Krishna's actions, Krishna's pastimes, and it's always some deeper meaning usually about these things. But yeah, we know Krishna is a boy here. What do boys do? They slap their hands, they slap their arms. And Krishna was fighting a lot during this time with his friends mostly, and with some demons too. The demons would never defeat him, his friends would sometimes. But yeah, this is an act of chivalry. To slap your hands is an act of chivalry. That much we can understand. Tie his belt, slap the arms, and this way he jumped. So yeah, we'll recite the Mangalacharana, and then we'll go deeper into this subject. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangshta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Lalita Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvidam Shta He Krishna Karuna Sindha Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Manchako Patarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Rama Hare Hare. So any initial thoughts here of anyone about this picture which Bhagavatam presents us here in the scene Kaliya created, and then Krishna appearing on that scene?
He's doing everything his mother told him not to do.
Sorry?
He's doing everything his mother told him not to do.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Krishna is not known for his being extremely obedient to anyone and everyone.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, there's a scripture, there's a part of the Vedas that has to do with creating the perfect drama. You know, what's that, Lord Jagannath's drama? Jagannath Priyanatikam, right? And Tamal Krishna Maharaj explains that to have a good drama, you have to have a good villain. It has to be a very formidable adversary and you realize his power and how difficult it might be to challenge somebody like that. And then comes the hero, and that creates the drama that this formidable adversary is there, and then the hero, by the virtue of his prowess, without hesitation, with great courage and enthusiasm, slapping his hands together, tightening his belt, jumping off the kadamba tree into making a big splash in the water. He's ready, fired up to challenge the evil adversary. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely by describing how poisonous the lake is, it shows how formidable the adversary is in this case. Yeah, that's a nice point. Thank you, Adi Purush.
You have to have a good demon. Good villain.
So one thing which came to mind to me, Jamuna Jaya, please.
Thank you, Vasudeva. Just a really quick thing that just occurred to me. Just a few verses, like a week or so, we were hearing about how the mind of the sage is like a clear lake, and here we're hearing about this polluted lake, and it's just really making me reflect of the minds of me and the material mind of being this polluted lake that it sort of emanates everywhere, where just a few verses ago we were hearing about how the mind of a sage is this clear, beautiful lake, and it doesn't contaminate everything around it. So I just was making that connection.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's definitely something we'll discuss. What Kaliya represents cruelty. The nature of a serpent is krura. It's described in Sanskrit. Krura means cruel. The definition of cruelty is to can be defined in many ways, but it's to do harm to others. Then by nature, being harmful to others. That's the nature of a serpent. Easily angered, easily provoked, to do vicious harm. So this is a trait we can, to some extent we may have within ourselves. Anger, cruelty, harshness. So Kaliya represents all of that. And so Krishna, he destroys that within the heart of the devotee. But we'll get to that in a bit. Another thought that just came to mind is very obvious in the world we live in nowadays. It's just environmental pollution. Kaliya represents severe environmental pollution. And that's, of course, pervasive in the world. Just give me 1 second. I want to pull up my notes here. Yeah, we read about how Kaliya created all this by his mystical potency, by this mystical science. He created his whole city in that water. And nowadays we have our material science, which is also in some ways quite mystical. Like the fact that we're speaking here over a video and people from like all over the world can actually just tune into this Zoom meeting or on YouTube and can see this all live. Even, let's say 20 years ago, I wouldn't think that this would be possible within my lifetime. And if you look back 100 years ago or 200 years ago, like all the technological advancements we have, it's mystical. How it exactly works is very hard to understand. You can understand it. There's many people who do understand it. That's why we have this facility. But it's for someone who doesn't know. It's mystical. If you bring a person from 300 years ago, bring them to this world, it's like, what's going on here? This looks very mystical. So this it's a mystical science. Kaliya knew how to create a city out of water, a solid place out of water. So, but he just knew how to do it. And meanwhile, he was polluting everything. So that's what we see nowadays. We have material science, which creates a lot of comforts for us and makes the world a comfortable place for us to live in many ways. But at the same time, creating a lot of discomfort to many other living beings, other humans, and including ourselves too. We're only destroying our own living environment, essentially. And my wife is an environmental scientist. She worked for the EPA. So the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, regulates the use of chemicals. That's one of the many functions of that agency. Because business doesn't usually care about the environment, they care about money. So the people who run certain businesses, they sometimes know exactly what they're doing. They're willingly and knowingly polluting the living environment, creating severe harm to animals, vegetation, ecosystems, and human beings as well, who sometimes work in those chemical plants without informing them of the dangers. But it's only for greed, for their own comfort and greed. So that's cruelness. That's cruelty. We sometimes do harm to others, but we don't want to, but just because of our conditioned nature, we do. But when you willingly do harm, that's extremely cruel. That is cruelness in its most essential form.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, and unnecessary. And taking this to the river in Jamuna itself nowadays, actually, when the Yamuna River flows, the Yamuna has its source in Yamunotri, and so in the Himalayas, and then it flows down. When it passes through Delhi, after it passes through Delhi, so when it comes towards Vrindavan, at that point, it's the one of the most, or perhaps even the most polluted river in the entire world at this time. So here is some data for you. The Central Pollution Board's most recently published water quality data from 2011. So this is data from 2011, but things have not improved very much since then. Maybe have even gotten worse. By the time the Yamuna exits the city of Delhi, it's lethal. The water contains a concentration of 1.1 billion fecal coliform bacteria per 100 milliliters of water. The standard for bathing is 500 coliform bacteria. So to be considered safe for bathing, 500 per 1 liter of water, about 1 liter of water. The concentration in the Yamuna after it exits Delhi is 1.1 billion. So I don't know how many times that is more than the. So this is the quote from an environmentalist called Manoj Mishra. That is the reason why this stretch of the Yamuna is called dead. Quote, because there's no life here. There cannot be life here. There's nothing here. Unquote. So we see how the modern Kaliyas, not with the science of Jalastamba, but with modern chemical science and other ways, they are severely polluting the same river. And there's been several initiatives by devotees and environmentalists and even by the government to stop the pollution. But it's said that there's every kind of law in Delhi to stop pollution, but there's zero enforcement. So things kind of remain as they are. And ultimately, this pains the heart of devotees, especially because by the time the Yamuna River enters into Vrindavan, we sing Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Krishna strolls along the bank of the river Yamuna. And the river Yamuna is what makes Vrindavan Vrindavan. There's three things which make Vrindavan Vrindavan. That's the forest of Vrindavan, there's Govardhan Hill, and the Yamuna River. So the Yamuna is at the heart of Vrindavan. So it pains all the devotees to see how polluted this river is. One of my god sisters, she took a bath in the Yamuna, not quite knowing the state of the river. So for a long time, she was in there with her son. She fell severely ill for 3-4 days. She didn't come out of bed now because it's so polluted. So, but we can only pray to Krishna that he will. There's a beautiful place actually in Vrindavan. You can still go there. It's on the Parikrama path. Not so far from the ISKCON temple, the Krishna Balaram Mandir. It's called Kaliyaghat. There's still a Kadamba tree there. Some they say it is an offshoot from that same tree, which from which Krishna jumped. And so you can still see that place and remember that place where Krishna jumped into the Yamuna in such a dramatic way, slapping his arms and tightening his belt. So we can only pray that Krishna again slaps his arms and tights his belt and can take care of business if he so desires. To clean up the Yamuna, because it's a little bit beyond us to do it, although we can support some initiatives, some action, some activism against this kind of pollution. Of course, Krishna appears in this age in the form of the holy name. Kali Nama Krishna, Nam Rupa Krishna Avatar. Krishna appears in this age is the holy names. So by Sankirtan Yagya, actually, although our environment is extremely polluted and getting more and more polluted, you hear also about like plastic oceans, plastic islands in the oceans. There's microplastics in everything. The water we drink has microplastics in it. Like everything is severely polluted. And becoming more and more so because the governments are not taking action. And people also don't really want to change. And it's too easy to just, go to the supermarket and buy everything. You almost can't avoid it. Yeah, everything is wrapped in plastic. We want to even avoid plastic. It's very difficult. But, we're also mostly taking the comfortable route and contributing to the problem. But what really, really will help is that we clear our consciousness. Our polluted environment is really a reflection of our own polluted consciousness, collective and individual consciousness in the world. And when our hearts become more clean and free from greed and lust, then more and more people clean their hearts, the more and more that this environment will become clean. There's no real other way around it. As long as people are severely affected by the modes of material nature, the lower modes of passion and ignorance, which are inherently harmful, the more things will remain as they are. So a change of consciousness is required. And that goes back to Yamuna Jaya's point, and we'll end with that. She had a nice introspective point, how Kaliya in some ways represents our own internal pollution. And this is a very nice verse by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I will read for you from his Krishna Samhita, in which he lists all the demons killed by Krishna or subdued by Krishna. And so this is his description of Kaliya. So it goes as follows: Kruratma Karya Sarpa Salilam Chitravadmakam Sandusha Yamunam Papo Harina Lanchito Gataha. So the evil and cruel Kaliya, he's described as Kruratma, whose mind is very cruel, and Papa, who's sinful and evil. So the cruel and evil Kaliya, Sandusha Yamunam Shalilam Chitravadmakam. He polluted the lake in the Jamuna, Shalilam Yamunam, which is described as Chitravadmakam, whose waters are chit, are purely spiritual. But eventually he achieved the markings of the feet of Lord Hari, who takes away the misery of all living beings. So the water of the Jamuna is described as Chitravadmakam. It's liquid form of chit. It's spiritual. It's pure. And similarly, our original consciousness is pure, spiritual consciousness, but that has become polluted by many different kinds of anarthas. And one of them is this anartha represented by Kaliya, which is krura, which is cruelty. And as Jamuna Jaya, so aptly because she's Jamuna Jaya, she has a good insight in this pastime. So she's very pained by this Kaliya. So, yeah, as you pointed out, the Vaishnava is exactly opposite. We read in the Ishopanishad, this is a very nice verse. And we find this in so many other places. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanya evani pashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tatona vidyagupsate. He who systematically sees everything in relationship to the Supreme Lord, and who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. So it says tatona vidyagupsate. Like a pure devotee, this describes Prabhupada, this describes a pure devotee, Uttama Bhakta, that never feels hatred to anyone, not even to one who's hateful. Because what is cruelty? Cruelty is just an expression of hatefulness, hatred within the heart. It starts with this feeling of hatred. And that's kind of the nature of the serpent. It's very hateful. It's very envious. Prabhupada used this word envy, not just in the sense of jealousy, but in the sense of this tendency to be harmful, to be hateful to others. One definition given is that when you enjoy the suffering of others, that's a definition of envy. So that's very twisted, very cruel, very hateful. And that then expresses in cruelty. Sometimes we hear about these horror movies, like recently a horror movie came out, I don't know it, I haven't seen it, but it's so ghastly and so cruel that people like faint by seeing it. But the interesting thing about the movie, actually, like the things it depicts, it's not made up. It's the stuff human beings do. And it's all like put together in some villain doing all of it. But if we look at the history of mankind, especially Kali Yuga, we find every form of cruelty imaginable practically, some unthinkable things and unspeakable things. So, but it's an expression of that hatefulness, that kind of that feeling of that envy of feeling like enjoying almost the suffering of others, because that somehow makes me feel better. So that's a very, very twisted sentiment, really coming from the mode of ignorance. The mode of tamagun is characterized as anger and violence, and that himsa, that tends to be violent, which is often seen in like these kind of poisonous creatures like snakes and scorpions and all of those. So said that the Vaishnava Prahlad Maharaj said that Vaishnava, sadhus, they are pleased when a snake or scorpion is killed for that reason, but they never hate the snake or the scorpion. Prahlad Maharaj didn't mind that Nrsingadev killed his father because he could see how harmful he was. But he never hated even his father, who created so much harm, did so much harm to them. And we see the same with Thakur Haridas, who was beaten. We see the same thing with Jesus Christ. So, and we experience, although much less harm is to somebody says something to us which we don't like, and we may even react to it like because of our own conditioned nature, or because our inner kaliya, we may like spit a little poison. We should regret those. We should regret our nature. And that's what Kaliya ultimately did. He regretted. He came to his senses because he had his wives praying for him, and his wives were devotees. And he came to his senses and he kind of internally surrendered. That's why Krishna did not kill Kaliya. He killed also many other things. He didn't kill Kaliya because Kaliya actually became repentant. And that's what set him apart. And even his wives were praying like, oh, just kill him. Because they were also not happy with him. They had many times asked him to surrender to Krishna, but he did not respond to that. So they didn't mind actually that Krishna was kind of taking care of him. But when they saw that he's like getting repentant, they could feel it. They could see it in his eyes. Then they started praying for him especially. Because that's when they saw, oh, now he's becoming a Vaishnava. Because a Vaishnava may have conditionings, but they always feel regretful about it and pray to Krishna that please purify my heart of these harmful tendencies. So even though sometimes we may express it, we should always regret it and always seek shelter of the Vaishnavas and seek shelter of Krishna. Because that's what Kaliya's saving grace is, the Vaishnavas praying for him. So we should always seek, especially those Vaishnavas who are free from envy, Nimatsaranam Satam, the pure Vaishnavas who are free from hatred, free from envy, who never criticize anyone because they don't have this hatefulness in their heart. So yeah, we always pray for them. I was also thinking of our Adi Purush Prabhu here, who lives next to the Hells Angels, who sometimes express very Kaliya-like sentiments, especially when someone sits on the bench in front of their home. So then I've seen Adi Purush Prabhu many times just be very tolerant, and even though being very severely chastised and attacked and so forth by very envious persons, but being very, very tolerant and forgiving. Yes.
Bike. Uh-oh. Gone.
Oh, you're still visible. You can just speak. You're visible.
By Krishna's grace and lots of prasadam, quite a few of those Hell's Angels became purified. They actually came out and helped with prasad distribution. They lent me a vehicle when our truck was broken. They helped us move to 8th Avenue, carried furniture down the stairs, So I can remember when we first moved there, they're throwing broken bottles at us and horrible. I mean, just, we see them like punching people out, slashing tires, mashing windshields, ripping out GPS and throwing across the street. They're not just kidding. They're not just like some kids with skulls on their motorcycles. They have this cultivated consciousness that's really twisted. And you made a really nice point in the class, and of course the scripture also described there's a correlation between the consciousness and the pollution in the environment. That deviation from Krishna consciousness brings out qualities of envy and hatred and ferocious, horrible, cruel attitudes and behavior, and it pollutes the environment. But fortunately, I mean, it may seem like hopeless when you hear about some of these polluted situations. It just seems like it's very discouraging. But actually, Scripture says, "Parastasmat bhavanyo vyakto viktatsenatana." Beyond this nature that we see in our immediate material environment, there's another nature. There's a whole other realm of existence, and it's not like that in the spiritual world, where everyone is engaged in devotional service and everything else is purified, and we have access to that. Krishna is so wonderful that he's explaining to us that there's another nature besides this ugly one, and that we can go there, and he's showing us how to get there. Okay, I'll go to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, so by the power of the Vaishnava, the prayers of the Vaishnava, people can be reformed. So yeah, thank you all very much for listening. We have still a few more minutes. So there's
Vasudeva, there's a question from Kartik in the chat. Can you
Yes.
see it?
Yes, I see it. If Krishna appeared to reestablish Dharma in this world, then why did Kali Yuga start as soon as Krishna left? Why does the material world keep getting worse despite Krishna reestablishing Dharma? Yeah, we can only imagine how worse it would have been if Krishna did not have come just before Kali Yuga. At least he cleaned the environment just before he left. But Kali Yuga has to happen. It's part of the natural cycles of this world, because this world is just a reflection of who we are. This world is a reflection of our conditioning. So there's Satya Yuga, in which people are very pure. And the environment therefore is very different. And it's very pure, very sattvic, very beautiful. People live very long. People have very peaceful minds. They can meditate for years and years. But within every conditioned soul, there's this tendency to break dharma, to perform adharma, to just, go for it, as we see, to just do it. As one famous sports brand has coined their tagline, just do it. So in all other ages, there's restrictions of dharma. Kali Yuga, it's just like dharma goes out of the window, just the mantras, just do it. Why is that? Because that's within us. So Kali Yuga, Krishna is just giving us the facility to just do what we want to do in this age, and we suffer for it, and the things get worse and worse and worse. And this way we can understand also the depths of suffering created by not following dharma. That has to be there as well. And Krishna has to give that facility. But with that facility, he gives another facility that he gives the highest. You can attain the highest goal in Kali Yuga by simply chanting the holy name, which is not available in any other age. So it has this dual function. And Kali Yuga is there for those who will express all their adharma, their tendency for adharma. Yeah, Krishna, you go for it. Kali Yuga is here for you. But within this, within all the suffering created by that also gives the highest path of bhakti, becomes much more easily practicable in this age than other ages. Simply by chanting the holy name, one can attain spiritual perfection. So it's a curse and a blessing at the same time. That's why sages, they glorify this age actually of Kali Yuga. Any other, as it's 8 o'clock, any other final thoughts or question or?
Great class, Vasudeva Prabhu. Thank you so much. It was dharmic, it was funny, it was inclusive. Thank you. Great class, I enjoyed it. I feel like my pollution has gone down.
Yeah, we pray that Krishna will dance up on the hoods of our internal Kaliya and reform him, and make him a soft-hearted devotee, free from any envy, cruelty, and so forth. So my prayer, this is my prayer to Lord Krishna today, my prayer to all of you, all the Vaishnavas to please bless me. A lot of work to do. Anyone who knows me knows that there are some, we need to, I also have work to do in that field. So please bless me. I can reform myself in this way by the mercy of Krishna, the Kaliya Damana, the subduer of Kaliya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vasudeva Prabhu, will you place us on the donation box so we can take darshan?
Yes.
Thank you. And dear devotees, please turn on your cameras and give your blessings to Vasudeva Prabhu. Krishna will deal with our internal Hell's Angels. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, that was it for today. Kartik, are you still here? No, Kartik is gone. Yeah, Kartik, great question. Yeah, Kali Yuga has to happen, but it's a blessing. In Kali Yuga, Krishna is approachable and available through his holy name. And I don't know, I was thinking about that Kali Yuga. I know the world is getting worse, but you know, in this, I'm happy to live in the same time with Bhima Prabhu, William, Domi, Susan, with all of you. Dana Krishna's Radharani, Dana Keli, Prabhu, Sharita Mason, rich on the path of devotion in his whole herd of animals. Preeti, Pink Yogi of Harlem, Krishna Daya Das. We're in this together, in this hidden blessing. We're in this together. And this makes this experience very joyful. It's so much fun surrendering to Krishna together, despite the world is getting worse. That was my thought. If anyone would like to reflect, I'm looking at a bunch of blank screens. What are you hiding? Who are you hiding from, Bhima Prabhu? I'm joking, no problem. So have a wonderful day. Happy Friday, as they say on Facebook. And come again tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam never ends. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Krishna Daya Prabhu, yeah. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, just that one point, like Vasudeva was telling, right? Outside environment reflects our internal state of consciousness. When the outside environment is getting polluted, that means that, our heart is also not so clean. So that is like a very important point to meditate on. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Krishna Daya Prabhu. Yeah, it's us. We're the problem, not them. Us. It's our consciousness. But see, Srila Prabhupada treated us with love. He took his time and energy to approach us and uplift us. And I was, I witnessed Adipurusha Prabhu's interactions with the Hells Angels. He can tell the stories. There's some pretty fun stories from those times. They moved out already. They moved out. But then Adipurusha Prabhu would always treat them with love. And over time, over the years, there was a visible change of heart on the part of the Hells Angels towards Adi. They've gone a long way. And one Hells Angel even stole a book from Adi, and he came to confess to Adi that he had stolen a book. And Adi said, "Okay, Kevin, nope, not a problem. You're welcome to help yourself with any book you see here. But what's the book that you took? What was it? Which book did you take?" And Kevin was like, I don't wanna tell which book it was. And Adi said, "No, tell me, it's okay." And Kevin said, "Joy of No Sex." That's the book I stole. Yeah. Kevin was a nice guy, and he even came, and his girlfriend, Kevin and his girlfriend, even came to the park to help feed the homeless. He helped distributing prasadam. And Kevin was a ferocious guy. When they first met, he threw a hamburger at Adi. He threw something. He threw chicken sandwich at Adi. He had a T-shirt that says, "If in doubt, knock him out." Kevin was like that. And when his girlfriend had a hip replacement surgery, the surgeon gave them the hip that was replaced. They gave him this bone. And Kevin was bragging that he had this bone. And Adi said, "So what are you going to do with it?" And Kevin said, "I'm going to make a lamp out of it." So that was Kevin. And still, Adipurusha Prabhu treated him with love. And Kevin did some devotional service and took a book. So Kevin, if you're listening, we love you. We miss you. And let's treat each other with love. Hare Krishna. Krishna Prabhu, thank you. Thank you for